I was straight-lined. I mean, totally straight-lined, out of my body, dead for an hour and a half. My name is Richard Cole, and I am 72 years old. I have never been what I would call religious. I've always believed that there was a God, and I believed that there was Jesus, but I've had doubts. I've been a doubter before, but I'm no longer that. And this happened to me in 2005, so that was 6 years ago. And so how it came about was that I was on my way to Monterey. I go up there every year for the historic car races. While I stopped at the stoplight, I had a pain that started in my jaw, right in the mandibular area, went down my jawbone, down my carotid artery, and into my chest. I said, "Whoa, this is strange." My blood pressure was extremely high, and they gave me a couple of shots right away to try and get my blood pressure down. And then I went right into the x-ray room, and they gave me some x-rays, and came back in a little while, and Steve, the doctor, a friend of mine, says, "You have a serious problem." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he says, "Yes." He says, "You have an aneurysm, but what's worse, it's split, and I think you're bleeding internally." 5 o'clock the next morning, I was in the the ready room rather, at Cottage Hospital. Anesthesiologist came in and says, "Well, I'm going to, give you a shot right now, and then you're going to go off to sleep." I said, "Okay." And then they got an electric saw out and started cutting my breastbone open. And then I saw them go down and start to take my heart out, and then everything went black. But I was still conscious, but I couldn't see anything. And it was like a heavy black fog, and I'm just standing there looking around. I couldn't figure out what to do next or what was going to happen next. Right then, 2 beams of light came over my right shoulder, so I started to turn around and look over my shoulder to see where it was coming from. And then I heard a voice. And the voice was very authoritative, not loud, but he says, "Don't turn around." And I'm thinking, well, why not? And he says, "Don't turn around, because if you see my face, you'll have to stay here." And he says, "Now, that'll be okay if you stay here, but I have a job for you, and if you disobey me, I won't be happy." And he says, "You don't want to see me unhappy." So I said, "Yeah, well, okay, I better pay attention and do what he says." And then I said, "I know who you are." He said, "Oh, you do?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, I've got a little problem. I've got a little pet peeve. I've got a little bone to pick with you." He says, "Well, what is it?" He wasn't mad or anything, just a normal speaking voice. And I said, "Well, I know that a new generation is born every 10 years. And I know that if you take the square root of 3 generations, it only goes back to about, I think it's about 589 years. And I said, I know that in the Bible it says that Adam and Eve have been on the earth about 6,000 years, something like that." And he starts laughing. I said, "Well, what's so funny?" He said, "Well, you are." I said, "Why?" He said, "Your math is wrong." And then I just start thinking, I said, where did I get those numbers? I must have been crazy. I couldn't believe that I said that, because, I kind of prided myself on knowing math and science. And all during this conversation, I had a feeling of where he was, that he was walking back and forth behind me, that he was sitting in a white, throne, just a plain chair, didn't have jewels or anything on it, but just a plain white chair, and I could just feel that, and I don't know why. That's what I was feeling. The next thing that happened is he says, do you have any more questions before you leave? I said, I got to think about this. And I thought, I was thinking really hard, what am I going to ask God? Couldn't think of anything. I wanted to be really smart enough to ask him something very pertinent. And so I said, well, I'm going to have to revert to an old cliche. What's the meaning of life? And he starts laughing again. I said, what's so funny now? And he says, well, I don't know why, but a lot of people ask me that question. And it's really real simple. But I tell you what, when you come back, we'll sit down. You can ask me all the questions that you ever will have. I'll answer them for you. So I said, okay. He says, okay, it's time for you to go back. And I turned around. I'm sorry, but he put his arms around me. He put his arms around me. And it was a feeling that I can't explain. It was unconditional love, but it was words. I can't tell you the words. And I'm sorry, but I always act like this because I can feel it again. So,